I'm Rhoneesha Williams. I'm from Flint, Michigan, but I reside in Smackover, Arkansas.
Okay, so tell me about your early life before this gentleman walked into your life. What was your life like? What was your dating life like? How was everything before?
Chaotic. I come from a family where my mom was addicted to drugs. So it was pretty much, I grew up fast on my own. And we moved from Michigan when I was in like 4th grade to Arkansas. And before I had started talking to my kid's father at the time. So I was dealing with one guy before he came into my life.
How'd you meet this individual?
School. We were in high school together.
Was there instant connection?
No.
Did he chase you? Did you chase him?
It was mutual. It was both. Like cat and mouse game. High school pettiness with both of us. Back and forth letters, and like I said, we were in band together, so we traveled a lot on Friday night. So we would talk then, and it just happened from there.
Okay. And did the relationship continue after high school, or did you break it off? Did
No.
Or was it on again, off again?
I got pregnant in 7th grade, and so he thought that my child was his, which it wasn't, and I told the truth. That I wasn't pregnant by him, but he did help raise her for like 2 years of her life. And through high school, yes, we were on and off, and what I would consider puppy love, or what I thought also was love, because he played mind games with me, telling me that he wanted me, but then he acted a certain way in public, or he was cheating. We would go to family functions together, but like I said, he would get caught with different females.
What'd your family think about him?
At that time, my mom and my stepdad loved him. My brothers liked him.
Was he a charismatic type of guy?
Charming, yeah. Charming.
Okay. So as you progressed into your early adulthood, did this relationship, was it still on again, off again? Was it consistent, or was he stepping out, cheating?
Wasn't consistent. I think we broke it off maybe like 11th grade. Because he was a couple years older than me. So it was more like if he came into town, he would contact me. I would see him, and I would hang out with him. He would periodically ask about my kids, ask about my family. It's like he stayed on top of what I had going on in my life, but I didn't know what was going on in his life. And I think around my 12th grade year, he had got married to another young lady. And they moved in together, and he told me that he lived in an apartment that they were sharing by himself. So me being gullible and naive, I would go to the apartment. He would take all pictures down so it didn't look like a female was there. And I went to this lady and I tried to explain that it wasn't me. And he must have lied. He did lie to her and made it like I was harassing him, or I was a fatal attraction to him. And next thing I knew, I was served with a restraining order, and he was still contacting me.
What year was this?
This was 2001, 2002.
Okay. After you were served with the restraining order, did your relationship with him continue?
It did. It did. It continued off and on throughout the years, up until 2011. 2011.
What do you think kept drawing you back in?
Him. Me believing him. And I only stopped dealing with him after he stole from me. My mom passed. I reached out to a family member, one of his family members, and because we were so close and he knew so much about what I had been through, he knew my life story. At that time, I reached out and I asked for him. Gullible, thinking that's what I needed at the time. He come to the service, and the night of the service, he was like, I needed rest, which I did. I believed him. I had sexual activity with him, and when I went to take a shower, he stole over $2,000, almost $3,000 from me.
So at that point,
That was my straw.
that was the breaking point.
That was my straw.
So,
But he has reached out since then.
So, what was worse, the financial or the emotional damage that's been done over the years?
When he stole from me. That was the straw.
How do you think he balanced going back and forth, with these multiple relationships and manipulating and lying and just emotionally hurting all these people? How did he do that and keep people drawn in?
He's the person that would convince you that it's the other person and not him. And if you're weak, and I have been weak throughout the years with him, I believe that he's not doing what he was saying, that he was taking care of his responsibility as far as a man, and that he at one point wanted to try to make it work with me and him. I believed him.
So every time you went back, you were drawing on the good times, because there had to have been some good times.
Yeah.
If you could go back to 7th grade and that first day, would you still date him?
Nope, I wouldn't.
No. How ultimately, sitting here today, has this relationship affected your life?
When I saw the post that had happened like a couple months ago, I was shocked, but I wasn't shocked. And then I was at the point where I kept saying to myself throughout the months, well, let me go back. In January, it was a parade that he had attended to. And I knew then that it was either going to be me or him if I did not break loose from him, because he had threatened me. And so now I'm like, I need peace, or I have peace with breaking ties with him, because I know that emotionally I have issues with men at times, because I have trust issues behind him. And not only just him, just people around me most of the time. So in aspects of it, he's damaged me as a woman throughout the years. And I'm trying to do better, because if I wasn't, I wouldn't be here today.
So, since you broke it off, the final straw, what's happened since then? With your relationship with him, relationship with everything that you've learned?
He contacts me.
Are these contacts to get you back in for a relationship, sexual relationship, money?
I don't know. I don't try to even. The last full conversation that I had with him was November of last year. And he reached out to my friend, and she kept saying, he just want to talk. He just want to talk. And so I put it in a group message, and I said, what do you want? We have nothing to talk about. Unless you're finna give me my money, we don't have nothing to talk about. Well, then that's when the threats start. I should shoot you for everything you've done to me. I haven't done anything to you, but okay. But I told him, like, if you feel that way, just don't ask about me. You keep up with me, you keep up with my kids, you keep up with my kids' father. Leave us alone. In January, when he come to the parade, he come to my job, asking me questions, why am I working this way and that way, and what's going on with me. And like I told him, what I do is not your concern. It's not. I have no ties to him. I have no kids with him. I wasn't married to him, so there's no assets me and him have to deal with. But he constantly lied throughout the years, and he's constantly manipulative. So in an aspect of me, in January when I told him that, I knew I was done, because I walked away and I didn't feel anger when I saw him. I didn't feel like I had to run from him. So this situation is like I'm fully at peace with it.
So it sounds like you have grown mentally and emotionally from this relationship. If you could give a piece of advice to any woman that's not necessarily dealing with, because there's thousands of men and millions out there, what type of advice would you give them that are in
Notice signs. When it's red flags, act on those red flags. Don't ignore. And if he does it once, he's going to do it numerous of times. He's not going to continue to... he's going to do what you allow him to do. But you have to know that you're worth more, and you have to be able to step up and have a support team and system that'll help you walk away from a situation before you get hurt or the next person get hurt.
So my name is Tana Castillo. I have 4 kids. They are 15, 12, 9, and 6 months. And I was a teen mom, and then graduated with honors, went to college, had got a degree in accounting, and then I had a sick son that he ended up having to have a bone marrow transplant. And then we made our way back to Arkansas, and I ended up in Little Rock so we could be closer for going back and forth for follow-ups and stuff, and the job opportunities were better here. And so I've just been in Little Rock for a while. So, dating life, I had, I had been married before, and I was married for 11 years, and then, so I kind of wasn't seeing anybody for a while after that, and I had met, a couple individuals and kind of had, just like a relationship, and I just kind of just dated this a little bit off and on, and kind of was taking it easy.
How'd you meet this individual?
So I met him off of an online dating site, and it was just, like the interactions were real brief, and like he was just kind of straight to the point. And he had talked to me one evening, asked me if I wanted to meet for breakfast the next morning. I was like, well, sure, and so that's how we met.
We met for breakfast that morning. Was there an instant connection? Could you say, hey, I can see myself with this guy's a super nice guy, or?
Yeah, he seemed real, like, just where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And we talked, and everything just seemed real easygoing, like just real easy to talk to, and just real calm, and just not, it didn't seem like there was any kind of like people trying to play somebody, like how people talk. And he was just real calm and just real easygoing. And then we had made plans to hang out later that evening as well.
How long did you talk before you entered into a full-blown relationship with this individual?
And so, probably, when I date, I usually just date exclusively with one person. And so I was just talking with him, mainly anyways. And so, he was more of a rush. He was very, very quick on things. And he, like about 3 or 4 weeks in, he was, I was just, at his house, and I was just standing there, and he just had looked at me, and told me, he was like, I love you. And I just looked at him. I was like, And then he was like, you don't have to say it back. I was like, okay.
Were you under the impression this was an exclusive relationship on his side?
Yeah. He definitely said, made that clear. He had told me that, about his, previous relationship. We talked about even, our age differences, and he kind of, looking back, he was mixing a bunch of people together as far as what he would say his previous relationship was. And so he he made it seem like he wanted to find somebody and wanted to have a life with that person. And so he seemed very straightforward.
Tell us about the relationship early on.
So early on, we would just go out for dinners. We would go or hang out to the house and watch TV. I'd gone on a couple trips with them, and it was just, and then with his work, it seemed like, when he would leave and come back, it seemed like every single time, as far as what he was saying, I was seeing him when he was home.
So how did your family and friends feel about the relationship? Did anybody give any cause for concern or anything like that early on?
My mom, she always doesn't like anybody, but she would always say, well, that doesn't seem right, or this doesn't seem right, or, my grandma, she absolutely adored him. She thought he was just great. And that's the only family members that he had met. But otherwise, they didn't really. The first red flag was when he told me that he didn't drink. And I had saw alcohol bottles at his apartment. And I had seen like wine, and it looked like moonshine and stuff like that. And I was like, I just kind of questioned, why is there alcohol here if you don't drink? No, I did have this kind of curious because he did like a video call with what he told me was his ex-wife. And it was like 11 o'clock at night. And I was trying to figure out why she would be calling and asking if he had somebody there. And so that kind of made me start to question things. Well, I had found out that I was pregnant, and before that, he had talked about his business and needing to have some things that would help him save on money, and so he needed a smaller trailer. And so I purchased a smaller trailer because he talked about everything, like how it would be better for us going forward and, stuff like that. And so I had purchased a smaller trailer, and then I found out I was pregnant, and he said that he said it would cost, like $700, and that, he didn't want any more kids because he already had enough kids, and he didn't want any more kids. And I told him that that's not something that I wanted to do, and he kept trying to push the issue, but, he would say that he'd pay for it and all that, but it never came to that. He didn't push it that hard, that he handed over any money for anything like that. And I kept telling him, that's not something I wanted to do. And so that kind of like made me step back, and I was just kind of in shock, because then later his story kind of changed to, that's not something I want right now, but maybe later. I was like, well, what would be the difference between now and later? The story started kind of changing. And then I was actually driving to go and pick up some of my mom's medications. And we were beside each other in traffic. And so I had turned in, we both were turning in the same place. He went one way and I went the other after we turned in. And I texted him asking him if he was in Little Rock, and he didn't say anything. And I was like, because I swear I just saw your car. And then I had left getting the medications, and I had just kind of looked across the parking lot and I saw where his car was parked at, and it was at a jewelry store. Well, I'd happened to just get a job at that jewelry store, and just for the Christmas season, and so he finally got back to me. He was like, yeah, I went and dropped off a watch. And I started questioning. I was like, he just asked me for money to pay for his glasses. So why was he dropping off a watch to be fixed? Like, that didn't seem like, something didn't seem right there. So later that evening, I go into work and I look at this watch, and sure enough, he dropped off a watch to be fixed. And I knew it was going to be around $300. But then I kept looking through, and I saw that he had all the notes said that they had been looking at rings, and that there was a person's name on there, and their ring size, and the rings that they had looked at. And all of this time, it's been while he was with me too, and it wasn't me. And so I had questioned him about it, and he said he didn't know where all that came from, because that person's name was his sister-in-law, and that the information must have gotten switched up. And so that's when it everything was just kind of clouding over for me. And so I ended up reaching out to that individual, and I just did some little research and found out some information. And I had an event going on that I invited him to go with me to, and then he all of a sudden said he couldn't go, that he was leaving town. And I was at his house, and so that day something just didn't feel right. And so when I left first, and he was behind me, and he just kept sitting there. And so I just kept watching him in the rearview mirror, and he turned a different direction, and I was like, he's going somewhere else. So I flipped the car around and went to where I thought he was going, and it turned out he was at another lady's house, and it turned out that's who the ring was for. And that's when I found out that there was somebody else. And at that time, I was like 5 months pregnant. So that was how that happened.
At that point, did you just walked away?
So I kind of lingered for a little bit. I think I was kind of in shock, and I talked to him for a little bit, but then I walked away, as far as thinking that anything was ever going to come of anything between us.
Is he involved in your child's life now?
He's seen him for about 5 minutes, as far as seeing him. But he did buy, somebody bought, because he gets money from other women. He showed up, told me to meet him at the store, and bought about $600 worth of stuff for him. And then he's randomly sent money. And just recently, because of other circumstances, he's all decided acted interested in wanting to have a relationship with him. I think because for me, I was more kind of standoffish at first, so he had to really try, and I guess I saw that he was really trying, so it seemed like it was sincere. And I think what works best for him is, in the moment, his job. His job really covered for him. So financially, there was times where he would ask me to pay this or that bill, and whenever he got back, he would pay me back, which he did for a stretch. And I think that was kind of just to show that he would pay me back in order to ask for more later and then not pay that back. And that's what ended up happening. And so I'm probably out around $4,500. And then we also have a child. And so that'll be kind of a forever thing. And so for me, it's really been hard to like take people for what they say, you know, just it's really been hard to trust people. So while I was kind of mentally preparing myself to like not be with him, not get the family life that I was wanting, I kind of set some things in motion for other people, like if this was happening to them in that aspect. Like with my baby registry, I had caught somebody else that I had was talking to at one point. I had looked them up, and they had a baby registry. And so I put his name on my baby registry just in case somebody else had looked him up and could find the same thing. And so, and it's kind of been helpful for some people because they've been able to find him on there while they were with him. Just don't, if somebody is pushing for things like really, really quickly, you just kind of take a step back and just really do your research on people. And because not everybody is, you know, who they say they are. And I just feel like people need to just kind of guard themselves. Whether the person is who they are or not. Like, if they're really a legit person, that they'll end up showing who they are in the end. After I had stepped away from him, he unfriended me on Facebook. And I was trying to find out some information. I had just put in his name. And I scrolled down and saw where he was tagged in some photos. And it was another woman's name. And so I had looked at that profile, and I was trying to figure out who that was. And then I made the connection that was who he was in a relationship previously. And then I saw that there was a baby, and I knew immediately when I saw the baby that it was his. And so at that time, I was about 7 months pregnant. And I had just found out that he had just had a baby right before that. So we were pregnant at the same time. And so I had talked with another lady that that I'd met before. I talked with her about it because I didn't know how to handle it, or how to go about it, how she would respond if I was to reach out to her. And so then one day I was just, okay, I've got to let her know that there's another baby out here. And so I did. I reached out to her and just kind of let her know my story. And she was just like, she was just totally accepting of it, and was like, I know how he is. And it was like there was no like backlash like I thought I was going to receive. So it's been really nice to kind of, through all of the mess, we were able to come together and support each other.
So today is September the 2nd, 2020. It is a Wednesday morning. I just feel mentally exhausted today. It's just a lot. It's just, every day it's just mind blowing when you think that you have, when you connect another piece of the puzzle to the board, it just overtakes you mentally. It does. It takes a lot of energy. And it's just, it's tiring, but because there is such a strong fight inside of me, I'm not giving up. I'm not stopping, because I have to keep going. This time last year, I was at the hospital because I was having issues, and Macy was just ready to come out. She wasn't gonna stay. I still had another whole 2 months before she was supposed to be here, but my body said otherwise. So she came early. So about this time is when they had me to stay at the hospital in North Little Rock, and then of course in a few more days to come, then Macy will be here. So it's just right now it's very emotional as to what is going on in my mind right now. And I actually talked to the individual on day before yesterday, and they had just stated that when I asked about why they weren't there, it was stated because of the way that I had acted, as a reason that they would not be there at the hospital with me. So that's just them playing the victim and trying to continue to still make me feel bad, but it's just crazy. So and as I see that, it's just the individual is just in a really bad state of mind. Their mind is completely gone. They're in their own little bubble, own little world, and it's just really sad. And as I look back now, I can see some of those things that I should have, things that I see now. I see those as I go back in the back of my mind and think about it. The signs were there, but I didn't see them. I honestly didn't. And it wasn't that I saw them and ignored them. I honestly didn't see them. It was just a lot going on. So, and then now just to see that individual now and how everything is, it's just, it pisses me off to the highest level of festivity. But there's nothing I can do. I can't control the individual. I didn't breathe life into them. I can't take life away from them. So, but there's just a bad feeling about the individual that it's just going to take a lot, because all those negative feelings and all those bad memories have just come back to life. And it's like they've come back with a vengeance. And it's just, and that's not good. That's not good for an individual, anyone. And I just, when I get up, I just have to take deep breaths and just say, just God give me strength, because it's just a lot to, it's just a lot to intake. It is. Emotionally, it is. So, but it's gonna be okay. It is. So this is my raw footage for the morning, and I hope that the other ladies are having a good day. And I just continue to pray for their strength, even though they don't have children that are entangled into this bad situation. But there are other things, their emotions and their feelings are broken too. So it's just, this is our therapy, and it's just going to take a while, but it's all good. So I'm going to continue on today and finish wedding planning. Wedding planning for others, making their dreams and their visions a reality. So while I continue to struggle with this, and at the end still having to say that I'm going to forgive this individual, not once, but twice. And it took a while for the first time, and I don't know how long it's going to be for the second time, but anyway, so everybody just continue to pray for all of us as we continue to go through this, because it's still a fight that is not over with, not anytime soon. So
I'm Karmi. I'm 32 years old, and I work for Miss Kim. We are friends and also co-workers.
So tell me about when you first met her. What was she like? What was her personality like?
Go-getter, very hard worker, very much a leader, because she also will work with us, and that's something that I love. And then just her creativeness as far as her event planning and being able to bring whatever's on paper or whatever the bride might have in their mind or event person have in their mind to life.
So unless she actually just went down to the rabbit hole with her, did you know much about her personal life when you first started working with her?
No, nothing at all.
Did you know Miss before?
Not at all.
And have you met him?
I have met him maybe once or twice.
And what was your immediate reaction, or what were your thoughts about him?
My immediate reaction was, who is this? Because I met him at an event, and he was just kind of directing me to do things, and I wasn't sure who he was, but I kind of fell in line and did what I needed to do, and then she filled me in on who he was in relationship to her.
So at that point, did you have positive vibes about him, negative vibes about him, or more so the same? You have the same mentality as Miss Kim.
Him or her?
Him.
He had more of a quiet demeanor about him, and a kind of, when I met him, it was a point and go situation. So it was more like, he's a little, he likes to control things, Because that's what she was kind of telling me, is that's just who this person is, and he likes to think what he's doing.
Before he came deep into the picture, what was Miss Kim like in regards to, you mentioned she was like the leader that actually likes to work, with her staff and things like that. What was it like at that point? And then I guess when he came onto the scene, did you notice any type of change or anything like that?
I actually didn't. The great thing about Miss Kim is that she has the ability to separate business and personal, and keep her personal to the fact that it doesn't bring her down. So once I was made aware that there were some issues between her and me, it wasn't an outside moping or a sad demeanor. It was like, well, this is what's going on with my life as we're working, as we're making small talk and working. She was just filling me in on what's going on. Like I said, the ironically great thing about her is it never seemed to make her crawl up on the couch and cry, that I saw. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure, most women have their time at home alone. You never know, and by all means, she has the right to, from things she's been through. But from every time that I've been around her and seen her working, never let it bring her down.
When you before you knew about anything that was going on, did anything change down to the point that she let you know that this was going on. So from the time that you didn't know all this was going on behind the door, because she's in this industry with wedding, happy moments, sunshines, and then she's telling you as all this is going on, did you notice any change, or what, or did she exhibit any change?
She was just busier because then it involved more court and talking to people, and just it changed from not just because my whole thing was how was she maintaining it all between juggling her kids, her entire business, helping other people out, and then the drama in the closet and the skeletons just falling out, and she still kept her head on strong. She still got her business done. Like, to be pregnant and completely run a business and not let anything fall short, she did that. I'm gonna say, from what I know about her, that she is a very deeply rooted in her Christian faith person. And so I'm gonna assume that she has God on her side at all times. And from meeting her parents, they're not the type of people to dwell on the bad. So I would say, like, just between her positive mind frame, her ability to stay close to God, and like others have said, her support system, she was just able to maintain it. Like, she has a head on straight. So though I'm sure it might hurt, she didn't let her emotions cloud her judgment or mess up what's going on in her life, because a lot of women would have.
Yeah.
Something would have fell to the side. The kids, the job, the maintaining a bride or something, an event, something would have fell to the side. And she was able to maintain it all despite the obstacles going on in her personal life. So first off, once we knew anything about her being pregnant, because I remember when we were just cleaning up her shed and she was like, oh, I think it might be a situation. And then once we were confirmed in that situation, she didn't let it slow her down. She was at work. She was putting things up. It was brides and guests who didn't know the difference, because what, you pregnant? All the way up until she had the child. When she went to the hospital near the end of her pregnancy, I think matter of fact, she went in for a doctor's appointment and didn't come back out until she had a whole child. And so I believe her blood pressure was up and down. It was having those type of situations. And once again, she was still maintaining her full life and her business, blood pressure issues, and being pregnant. She goes in for a doctor's appointment. She's not coming out. I remember me and other staff members had to come and have a meeting so we can get the last wedding done. That was the next day, the next day, I believe. Did he show up? I think maybe after the child was born, briefly. Very not cool like. Regardless of how he feels about her, that's still his child. He still know what he did, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't no mystery child. He had plenty of time because God allows 9 months to figure it out. And so even though Macy was born a little bit early, to briefly come and see your child afterwards, to not be there for your child's mother while she's going through not only a life-changing situation, but it could have altered their lives in different ways because she was having blood pressure issues. Not just one child, but it's 2 other kids to consider outside the one she's having. So it was just very inconsiderate to allow a person to go through that. Personally, I've been through that. To have a child by yourself, it's not fun. It's not the ideal picture in your head that you ever think you're going to have to swallow that pill that night. Because most people, they got the husband, the baby daddy, the boyfriend, somebody to hug, help, kiss. Just let you know, hey, you made it through. Even if y'all don't get along, you know I'm gonna have that person right next to you. And he wasn't there for none of that. That's not considerate at all.
And how do you think he is able to manage with this lady over here, and 3 other women? How do you think he's able to juggle all of it? What type of person?
Yeah, I don't watch CSI and all them TV shows. Something ain't right. That's got to stem from some childhood. Somebody rejected you. I'm a master manipulator, and I don't mind lying to this person, putting that person's life in jeopardy, taking the next woman's decision away on whether she wants to deal with you and deal with the other situations, because there are plenty of women who are okay with multiple dating situations. Go find them. Let them know the truth. Be with them. But when you sneaking and you hiding and manipulating and lying to get through life, that's just a con artist. And you need to reconcile that with God. Because how do you keep up with them lies? How do you feel okay taking that person's money or their last? Or how do you feel okay with them crying on your shoulder knowing you don't care two craps about them? Maybe you do in some kind of way. How do you reconcile feeling that way about 6 people? Or reproducing kids? Like, this is lifetime bonds that you're now making with these people you dating. And now these are kids that you're affecting and siblings that you're affecting. Like, you take everybody's choice that is anywhere near you away. What do your mama think? Like, she got 3 grandbabies now. What about the one she already got?
And then lastly, you know Miss Kim's situation. If this happened to another lady that you know about what's going on, what advice would you have for the next woman, or women in general, that, like, what type of red flags to look for, or what advice would you give, just from a friend's perspective?
I feel, okay, so you can always look out for your red flags. You can always ignore or take heed to them. But really, do you blame yourself for just being happy at the moment, or trying to find love, or trying to rekindle something that you think, oh, okay, this person is grown? Like, I can't blame her. I can't tell her, hey, don't date a nice man who's being nice to you. Don't try to be a woman who's loyal to her man and help him out through hard times. That's what y'all want, right? Ain't that what most men want? Okay, so how am I tell anybody to watch out for any signs? He had ill intent behind everything he was doing. Every woman that's involved genuinely thought she was the only one. She genuinely thought he really cares about me. So when I tell her you was wrong for loving back, or you was wrong for trying, what advice can I give you? Always be careful. That's what everybody and anybody in any relationship, if they show you signs, be careful. But we all are human, and we're all going to fall short and make mistakes. So learn from your lesson. If there's anybody, learn your lesson. Find your standards. Now you know, okay, next time I got to look out for these signs, and this is the standard of a person, and I need to dig deep. Dig deep. Childhood deep. Find out. Do they talk to their mama? What happened with their grandma? Why don't they deal with this side of the family at all? Because that actually might affect your life. Because they might know something you don't know.
My name is Kimberly Jenkins, and I am a wedding planner and event designer. I own my own company, Kimber Decor Events, that is here in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm originally from El Dorado, Arkansas, and I do have 2 children, and they are, I have 3 children. I just recently had a baby, forgot about her. Can't leave the baby out. I am new mommy. So my son is a senior this year, and I have a daughter that is 14, and then the new baby, Macy, and she is 1.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your life before this individual walked into it. How many years ago? How many years ago before this individual walked into your life?
It has been 19 years.
So let's go back 19 years. How was your life before said individual came into it?
I was a cheerleader in high school. I met the individual through a family member. His aunt married my dad's brother, and that's how we end up meeting one another, just going to his grandmother's house when we were very young. So in the summer times, when my parents were working, I would often go
with my cousins and my aunt to his grandmother's house and over their house as well. So that's how the connection began at that point.
Okay, so it wasn't an instant connection, it's just something that grew over years?
Yes, it just grew over years and just kind of playing together out in the dirt, out in the country. And that just kind of, formed just kind of a bond that we all just had, just, being around each other during the summer times.
When did the actual relationship start?
The actual relationship started when I was in the 12th grade. We had kind of flirted a little bit prior to then, but it was just kind of like that kind of puppy love kind of thing, that's my cousins, and so it kind of was a little twisted there, but like I say, it just kind of started once the 12th grade, and I was actually pregnant my senior year by another individual and was getting ready to graduate, and that's when the bond formed at that time.
So tell us about the early stages of the relationship when it first started. How was it?
So when it first started, he instantly just took over as far as that role model, that father figure for my firstborn son, which he currently is deceased. And basically at that point, the father of my child was not in the picture. So just basically just kind of opened his arms and took him as, his child, and was helping as far as with dropping off at daycare, was helping with, buying clothes and anything else that he needed at the time.
How'd your family feel about him?
At the time, my parents, they thought that he was really great. He was helpful. He actually helped my dad a couple of times with yard work. He's helped him with things there out at the house. So they were very fond of him.
And how long did the relationship last? From 12th grade till when did it break off?
So at that point, the relationship lasted from that point all the way, we got married, and then he instantly went into the military. We moved into an apartment, and then we ended up getting a divorce back in 2014.
Let's talk about the early years of the marriage. How was the marriage?
So of course, with us we were very young when we got married. So at that point, it was just kind of like, this is something we're going to do. We know that we're going to be together forever. So let's go ahead and get married. And we had formed that bond, earlier in the years of being together. And so at that point, he, took initiative to say, I know what I need to do as a man and take care of my family. So he joined the military right after high school. And at that point, I knew that the life was going to be set at that point, because you have a lot of amenities that do come with being in the military. So I knew that the health insurance was going to be covered. I knew at that point that we would be able to travel, which I had already traveled in my earlier years with high school with like 4-H and FBLA. So I was accustomed to, going to states and other places. On the other hand, joining the military and being able to go out into the other states and, or across overseas, that was going to be a new challenge for him, because he had only been there in the Smackover area, which is a very small town. So life at that point, I just knew that this is going to be great and everything is going to be, just awesome.
What was the first red flag?
The first red flag was the family members. When we first got married, of course there was, I won't say a lot of hatred, but there were dislikes.
At what point during the marriage did things really start turning for the worst, where you said, hey, what's going on?
So once we moved to Germany, that was the first station, and we got there, and of course he went before us, and then they sent for myself, and at the time I had the one child, which was Madison. So we were sent over to Germany. We were stationed in Schweinfurt. It was gorgeous, and it was amazing being there. Once I got there, then of course we stayed in a townhouse apartment area that was for military families, and there weren't a lot of things in the apartment yet, so of course I had to kind of purchase things as we were there. But I just kind of noticed that once I got there, it was kind of like I was stuck in the house. I couldn't really go anywhere. Of course, I really didn't know a lot of the languages if I went outside of the gated area. I could not drive a stick shift, so that definitely kind of hurt things. But I noticed that at that point that it was just kind of like, this is not what I thought. So that was kind of another red flag. And then as months kind of went by, then I noticed that looking back at different scenarios, I can now see that those were times that he was out with other women or out with, the guys, and they were, at different places that they shouldn't have been at. So at that point, it really started to turn for the worse. And we had been there maybe right at almost 2 years. And then our son got sick, and he was diagnosed with cancer. And at that point, I just knew, I began to see him backing away from the whole situation. I had my neighbors and other church family members that were there that did step in to help kind of pack up things as we were getting ready to leave. And he was just kind of very nonchalant with a lot of things that was going on during that time. And of course, like I say, we were young, and having a younger child that did have cancer, that is a lot to deal with at a young age, and we were newly married. But that still is not an excuse for any individual to step back and not do what you're supposed to do for that child.
Did you ever confront him about your suspicions of maybe stepping out, cheating? Were there ever any arguments?
Yes, there were arguments, and at that time, it actually was brought to the attention of his staff sergeant, because at that time, I was not allowed to check the accounts. I was not allowed to have access to the debit cards, and then I just noticed that at times, there were other females that had been into the home, and at that time I was providing childcare services through the military for other individuals, and at that time there were other single parents that children that were being brought there to the homes, or he would reference and say, oh, I ran into this individual, they're new to our brigade, and she needs childcare. Well, only to come to find out in the end that these were individuals that he actually had been sleeping with. And so basically I was just their babysitters while he was, going out and having dates with them or being at their homes. Sometimes there were even overnight care. And so those are the things that I would talk to his staff sergeant about, and the staff sergeant then brought it to his attention for us to attend counseling, but he never went through with the whole process of the counseling sessions.
So when you got back to America, when did the relationship actually end? When did you decide to walk away?
Once we came back, that's kind of when the war broke out, and we were at Walter Reed. We were moved to DC at the time, and at that point I kind of knew that I'm probably going to have to take the rest of this journey by myself with my children, and I pretty much at that point I just wanted to focus on my child. We were there at Walter Reed. He was having chemo sessions. He had to have a stem cell transplant. And I just explained to the doctors that I am in a very bad situation. I cannot check my mailbox. We don't really have food in the refrigerator. This individual has purchased a new motorcycle. He has purchased a new Ford Explorer. I'm driving a Jeep that I have to put water in just to make it from Maryland to DC every day for treatments. at this point, as soon as you all can get him to the point to where he can be able to travel, I have to go back to Arkansas because my family's coming here and they're going back and forth and I have no support whatsoever. We then had to leave the townhouse that the military was paying for, and we stayed in the Ronald McDonald home. So here I was, and at this time, kind of going back now, I had already gotten pregnant and we did have another child, which is our older child that is a senior this year. And so now here I am with one child in the hospital with cancer and then now with a 2-year-old, almost 2-year-old at this time, staying in Walter Reed. The nurses and even the doctors at that point could see that there is something very wrong with this situation and that it's very dangerous for this family. So they actually had allowed for my child to stay with me in the hospital while my other child was there receiving treatment. So at that point, I knew that it was just time to wrap up and come back to Arkansas.
Okay. When you came back to Arkansas, divorce happened, or you know?
Once I came back to Arkansas, I filed for a divorce, and my son was still taking treatments at that time. We were here at Arkansas Children's Hospital, and then of course just trying to gather the rest of the pieces of the things that I had left in DC and bringing them back here. So I did file for the divorce, and at that point, he was already seeing 2 other women at that time. So I just knew that, that was we just needed to close the case on everything. And at that point, then I enrolled in some classes here for childcare and for teacher, and then pretty much at that point, it just kind of, I was in school and I was working at a daycare at that time, and then just kind of met some other close friends that were in the area here in Little Rock.
Did he decide to be part of his child's life that you had? You said you had another child. Is he part of the child's life?
So at that time, he was not. He just had so much other things that he was concerned about, how he was going to survive, the women that he had, the other vehicles, the motorcycles, all the materialistic things. So at that point, he was not concerned. I had even filed for some type of support prior to the divorce, and the attorneys. We had went ahead and filed for the child support and everything, but he was not. He would make random calls to see the child, but at that point, I just knew that it was unsafe. He was unstable. He was not reliable. And so I already had enough going on with the child there receiving chemo treatments. So I did not want to add anything else to the plate as far as allowing him to come get the child and then wonder, where is my child sleeping? Is he being fed? Is there another female watching over my child while he's with someone else?
How does he balance this? How does he do this? How does he manage multiple women, multiple relationships, multiple children?
I think it's like a clown juggling balls. I think that he just, it takes a lot. It takes a lot for an individual to balance all of those different things. And I honestly don't know what goes on in his mind from day to day, or what type of system or calendar, that he keeps to let him know, when someone is coming out, when someone is coming in. But he is very knowledgeable of all of the individuals, their systems and like where they're working at and how they're, when they're going to work, when they're staying at home. And he always asks questions. So he's able to juggle that, but it takes a lot. It does take a lot.
And how has this affected you in the long run, mentally, emotionally, financially? How has this taken a toll on your life?
It has affected me. It has taken a great toll on my life. from the moment that my son was diagnosed, I would have never thought at that point that I would have been the individual that would have to literally carry all the bags on my shoulder. Financially, I was not working at the time in DC, so of course donations that were coming in from family back here in Arkansas, or friends or other organizations that donate to the Ronald McDonald House, that's how we were able to survive with the donated lunches and dinners and gift cards that were provided. And of course, once I came back here to Arkansas, then of course I knew I wasn't going to give up, so I enrolled in school to start a degree in teaching, and then just started a minimum wage job. But it has affected me a lot, but I have basically supported my kids financially, mentally, emotionally, with daycare, going to school at night, working during the day, juggling all those different things as a parent. So that has affected me a lot. But from that point, I was able to obtain not only just a teaching degree, but I also obtained a business degree, and now I own my own company as a wedding planner.
Okay. And has he tried to reach back out? When's the last time he tried to contact you, meet up with you, have any type of relationship?
So he actually, after the divorce, after the funeral, we did keep in contact just a little bit. It was an off and on situation. And then recently, we kind of, I would say, kind of became a civil, to where it was like, okay, we're getting of age. And at this point, it's, I've moved past all of that. I've put all that behind me, and at this point, your son needs you, and we need to just, we need to co-parent, and we've got to be on the same page. So he recently contacted me back in 2018. We basically became a little bit closer as far as like our son, and what's best for him, and being able to see him. And at this point, he had already remarried and was living here locally in Arkansas. So he contacted me, and we would talk on the phone, text message. We would see each other as far as, hey, how did this day go, or what is he involved in, or when's basketball practice, soccer, all of those things. So at that point, looking back, that was just his way of like, I'm going to pull her back in slowly but surely. I'm going to work on her because I know that we have history, but I'm eventually going to pull her back in to where we can have some type of close bond. So at that point, he pulled me back in, and then around August of 2019, 18 or 19? I think it was 18. So August of 2018, we kind of at that point started to just kind of help each other out. He would basically come over and say, hey, I know you got an event today, or whatever, like, do you need the trailer? Do you need help loading? And so it's like, oh, okay, well, I actually have 2 events this day. It'd be really great if you helped out. And so he kind of started to help. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, that's, it's kind of strange, it's kind of odd, but like, that the more the merrier. So, and of course, like I say, everything was just kind of on that level of, we're just becoming, closer parents, and better friends. And so we have this great bond together. And at that point, then that's when we kind of started seeing more of each other, and started, kind of hanging out, going out to eat, and just kind of going to the movies. And then at that point, then we got back together.
And what brings us here today? How did we get to this point? You got back together. We're here today. What happened?
Chaos. It just, the brick wall just fell. The tornadoes came in. Once we got back together, I literally told him, I actually was really scared. Maybe about a month after I noticed that we really started to get close to each other. I literally told him one night, I said, if I let you back in for the second time and you screw me over, it will not end well. And he says, no, I promise I'm not going to hurt you. We need a second chance. We got married young, and we did. We moved, across seas, and that was a lot for me, and it was a lot for you. And I was young, and I didn't really have my dad there to raise me and to teach me how to treat a woman. And so all those things that he said, it made sense, and it just pulled you in, and it made you feel like he's on the right track. And then, of course, over the course of time in the past, he had started to help out with the business and, helping with, other things around the house. So it just only made sense that he has actually grown. This is now our second chance. I'm now going to have that family that I thought that we should have had in the beginning. And so why not? Let's definitely give this a second chance. And slowly but surely, things started to crumble. They started to crumble because he was seeing other individuals. There were things that were found in the home that did not belong to him. They belonged to other women. There were other issues as far as how he obtained money. I always wondered how he was able to have the nicer things in life. And then it became evident that he uses a dating site to see other women and to obtain other women. And then when he gives them these sad stories about, how he's trying to do things in life or how he wants to invest in things in life to make his trucking company better, then they will Cash App him money, and then he kind of has that Cash App hustle going. So at that point, once I started to find out these things, then I confronted him about it. And so once I confronted him, and then of course, he just made me believe that you're crazy and you're snooping through my house and you're snooping through things, and how dare you accuse me of this? And, he's the victim, and he just would make up these stories to make you think that you actually would sit, and in the back of your mind, you think, well, am I tripping? Like, is it me? Like, what's going on here? Like, okay, well, maybe I am, I haven't dated in a while, and, and I don't know, this is almost 2020. And so it's a new world. But no, he was just that good. The stories just kept coming. And so, of course, you kind of like, you take a deep breath and you say, okay, well, you know what? I'm just going to move that to the side, and I'm just, okay, we're going to, just get past that. And you've got a little flaws, and we've all got flaws and, things or whatever. And so we're just going to make this work. But it just became worse and worse. And at that point, then it was like, I've already been down this road with you. We already have history. There is no way that I'm going to do this again. And then at that point, I walked away. But when I walked away, I did not know that I was actually pregnant. And at that time, wedding season was busy, and I was just continuing to do what I've always done, just pushing forward. And then every now and then I would get a text message and say, hey, how are you doing? And it's like, looking at your phone like, what? Are you serious? Like, are you, no, okay, whatever. It's like, yeah, I'm busy, talk to you later. Or just pop up and show up and be, asking questions. And it's like, why are you keeping up with what I have going on? Like, if it's nothing that doesn't have to do with your son, like, we don't have anything else to talk about. And so at that point, I became a little sick, and I just started having some other health issues. So when I went to the doctor and I was like, hey, I need to get myself checked out. I need to find out what's going on. And they came to me and they said, you're pregnant. And I was like, no, that's not possible. Like, we know, like, you've been my doctor for 10 years and I've seen a specialist. You sent me to the specialist. This is not happening. And I was like, and especially not with the individual that I've been with. There is no way. And of course, once I told him that I was pregnant, the first thing that he pretty much said was, so it's going to cost about $600 to $700. We'll get this taken care of. And I was like, you have to be insane. I was like, you literally want me to abort my child. There is no way that this is going to happen at all. And that's what brings us here today, because at that point, it just literally, that kind of broke the mold. He wasn't there at the hospital, and he was not there once I got rushed to the emergency room to having a cesarean. I was at stroke level, and there was just so many other complications that was going on. And from that moment on, little did I know that there were other people in behind the scenes that they knew about me, that he was dating. And at that point, once the child was born and we made it home safely and time had passed by, then it was just like the rain just came pouring down. We knew at that point there are other people involved, and this is bigger than what I could have even imagined. Like this storm, it's a lot of rainfall that's about to happen. So at that point, individuals, they reached out to me, they contacted me, and then literally things just began to just fall into my hands, fall into my lap, and the puzzle pieces just all started to just come together. And it was just unbelievable. I just couldn't imagine. I was like, this is my life. I'm the person, I'm the wedding planner. I help people get together, and I plan their days, and I put their visions together and make their day beautiful, while in the back scene of it all, my life is literally falling apart. I'm literally going through this enormous storm, and I'm like speechless about it. So that's what brings us here to tell this story, to inform, other women that just not only dealing with, not necessarily just the particular individual, because we know that there are other individuals out there that are going through this same thing as well.
So my name is Marsha Scalark. So I met Kim back in 2007 at church. So we went to church with each other for a few years, and then we started working together. I started doing, helping her decorate and stuff like that. She was a happy person. She would host, actually we got closer because she would host like Sunday dinners after church. So a few of us would gather over her house when she stayed not too far from here to kind of, eat and mingle and just fellowship together. So fun person to be around. Initially, I want to say she was doing early childhood education. Okay. Initially, then the decorating and wedding organizing came later. I met her in 2007 at our church. We attended the same church at that time.
Nice. And what was she like on the surface? Like family person, easy to get around, she's pretty stern. What was her?
Pretty approachable, friendly person. You kind of see a lot of faces at church, and a mutual friend introduced us, and then we met, and then we started hanging out at her apartment. I met him in passing at when we were working, we were doing a wedding. So I never, just kind of high and by. Okay. I don't know him personally.
Right.
No.
So from the surface, from that level, did Miss Kim make it seem like when he was around anything was unusual, or she was having any problems or anything like that?
When I met him, no, it was just a normal work day. We were, I know she used his truck to kind of load some of the decor and stuff on, so it was just kind of very brief introduction.
And from what you saw about him, obviously it was brief. What would you say about him? He seemed okay, or what was your initial thoughts about him, if you had any?
Seemed kind of just reserved into himself. I didn't, like I said, my interaction was short, so seemed like a normal person.
Gotcha. And so Miss Kim, she has 3 kids. How has she, from your perspective, how has she been able to manage all that, especially with what else has been going on? How do you think she's been able to do that?
I think she's a pretty strong person, and she has parent support. That's a plus to have that family support. The kids, when I met the kids, they were younger, so they're much more mature and older now, so they're able to kind of be more independent. And she doesn't have to be wait on them hands and feet like she did when they were younger. I would say she just keeps a positive attitude. No matter what adversities that may come her way, she tries to just maintain, stay afloat, and handle business.
So dating multiple people at one time, how could that affect someone mentally? You would say.
I would say that I would look at it as being tough. I don't think I could personally do it because it's a lot to juggle unless it just depends on what you're dating for. I'm one of those people dating with a purpose. But if you're dating to have fun and you're a more casual, laid-back person, it may not be a problem for a certain type of personality. Right. So it depends on the personality and how that person is wired. It may be fun or it may be draining. It just depends on how you're wired.
Okay. You know about the whole situation, right? All this stuff.
Somewhat. You just.
Okay.
Somewhat.
So, obviously, you haven't met him a lot. Your passing was very brief, as you mentioned. How would you say an individual like that is able to, juggle all these individuals at one time? How do you think he's able to do that?
I would say just people that I've met like that they live a facade. They're not real with themselves or other people that they meet. They're liars. And I think it's so ingrained in them to where they've done it for so long to where it comes easy. In comparison to somebody like me, who I'm one of those monogamous people, it would drain me to juggle multiple people. But if that's what you like to do, to kind of play with people, they may get energized by manipulating people.
Right. Are you married by chance?
No, I'm single.
Okay. So you're single. Outside looking, and do you have any kids?
No.
Okay. So you're single and no kids. Outside looking at Miss Kim's situation, how does that make you feel? All that she's going through. And, just from a friend's perspective.
It's disappointing and disheartening, especially looking at just the black family and for our black men to mistreat our women that way. So it's disappointing considering their history, being married and have kids together. It's just not right. And it's just not the type of person that I am. And I believe in karma. And I just think you should not mistreat people. So it is hurtful to see one of my friends going through something like that, and I don't wish that on anyone. And so it kind of makes me more timid to date as well, being a single woman, and just have my guard up more because it's you never know who you're at to meet, because I could meet a man like him.
Without giving too much detail or as much detail as you want, being a counselor in general, what type of problems, well, let me ask you this just from my perspective. Being a counselor, is there a counselor is the main thing, and then you specialize in certain things of counseling? Is that how?
I specialize in tobacco cessation counseling, so not necessarily, it's not mental health therapy at all. It's just literally tobacco cessation. And mental is totally different, but I think a commonality is motivational interviewing, just to kind of figure out what makes people tick, what would motivate you, in my case, for quitting smoking or that nicotine addiction. So it's just really listening. I think a counselor has to have good listening skills too.
Okay. If for now that you know what Miss Kim is going through, what advice would you have for someone, or for the next lady you may hear about things going on? What advice would you have for them, being that your best friend has just went through all of this? I would advise women to pay attention to those red flags and not ignore them. Follow your gut. Sometimes we think it may be emotions, but I believe your gut is to pay attention to your first instinct. I'm a spiritual person, so I pray. I believe in praying to God for discernment about certain people. And I think people show their true colors over time. I think, you meet representative when you're out here dating people, but give them time and their true character will show up. So I think just give it time and try not to rush things. Try not to create these fantasies in your head. And I think people will show their true colors. And when they show you who they are, run, is my advice.
All right. My name and I met in December of 2016. I hired him to do some work at my home. And then after that, maybe about 5 or 6 months later, we became friends. He would just randomly call me, and we'd talk. We knew some of the same people, and we were from basically the same area as far as hometown. So it was just easy to talk to him. And again, we were friends. And we were friends from that point up until 2019. In between that time when we would talk, he was the person that I would call in case I needed some help with something around the house, or I needed him to pick up some furniture for me. He was just kind of like my go-to person. I trusted him. He was just a super nice guy. And then at the end of 18, he called me and he asked me to go out to dinner with him. So I was like, okay. He had moved into an apartment. And so from that point, we started seeing each other. I say we started seeing each other around January of 2019. And he was just the perfect guy. He was very charming, very kind, very sweet. He was just easy to talk to, easy to get along with. He met my family and they adored him. He charmed them. He was just helpful. If you needed anything, he was the person to call. And as far as the relationship, it was great. Again, he was Prince Charming. He was just like perfect. And I just couldn't understand how somebody could be that perfect in a relationship, but he was. He said and he did all the right things. He would surprise me with gifts. He was just sweet. And that continued until around July or August. And I was made aware that his ex-wife was pregnant, but he claimed that there was no way that he could be the father. Before he and I had gotten together, he did tell me that they had started seeing each other, but he explained to me that once we started the relationship, that his relationship with her had ended previous to that. So around August, I became aware of her due date, and I started to question him about it. And I believe that was the beginning of the end for us in our relationship. And I guess I need to go back a little bit because there's some things I left out. So I was good at being the victim. And he explained to me that some things that he'd had, his ex-wife had taken away from him. And he just played the victim. He said he had all these things and his ex-wife didn't like his extracurricular activities or the things that he liked. She didn't like that, so she took things away from him. And I was like, oh, that's horrible. And so then he approached me about purchasing a vehicle. And we bought it together. And everything was fine. We both split the payment and we were making the payments together. And that continued until the end of our relationship. So as I go back to August of 2018 when I became aware of the ex-wife being pregnant. And I asked him about it and he denied, of course, that it was his. And so at that point there was nothing I could do because he was denying it. And I wasn't going to approach this individual about it because I knew that at that point that she was having a difficult pregnancy. And so then later on, a couple of months later, I learned about another lady that he was seeing. And she and I talked, and she confirmed some things. And I tried to work through it because I was involved with him emotionally, and I loved him. And there was the financial aspect of it as well. And so we were trying to work through it, or as I now believe, I was the one that was trying to work through it. He was doing whatever he wanted to. Then I learned that, I learned that another lady was pregnant. And this lady approached me and explained to me that she was pregnant by him. We talked at length for about 2 or 3 hours. And I believed her. Some people told me that I shouldn't because at this point she could probably say anything she wanted to hurt me. But I believed her. And the conversation was very civil. It was very mature. But I did believe she was pregnant. And at that point, that's when I decided to walk away from the relationship. And that was in December of last year. And I was hurt because I come to realize that I was the only one in the relationship. And so after that, he still had the SUV that we purchased together. And he made payments on it up until February of this year. And so mid-February, I asked him for money for the payment. And he ignored me. And it was a sizable payment, so that's not something that you can get behind on. So then I didn't hear anything from him. I sent him another text asking for money, nothing. So I just decided that I would pick up the vehicle. So I knew where he was parked at when he worked. I contacted someone that owns a tow company, and they agreed to pick it up for me. So while he was at work and the truck was parked at the parking lot, I towed the truck. And so then later that day, he contacted me. He called me nonstop, probably about 5 or 6 times. And I didn't answer the phone. And so finally I called him and I said, well, I picked it up because you're not making payments. And from that point, there's been very little contact between us. And then in July, I received a phone call from someone that was in a relationship with him. And that confirmed, or it opened my eyes. And at that point, I realized that he had a pattern of behavior and that he was doing the same thing over and over again. He comes across as just being this, just wonderful person. He gives you the smile and he gives you this look, and he is a pro at playing the victim. You feel so sorry for him because he just acts as if he's just been wronged in all of his previous relationships. Well, I can say that trust. It's going to be difficult. I lost the trust. It's going to be difficult to trust anybody after him because I believed in him. He had his own trucking company, and he seemed to be doing very well for himself. And that wasn't the reason why I was with him. I was attracted to him because he seemed to be very focused and business minded, and he seemed to have goals. That's the way he came across to me. But I've since come to learn that he became the person that I wanted him to be. He's like a chameleon. If you tell him what you're looking for in a person, in a man, or in a relationship, he can magically become that person. He is everything you want him to be. And so then about 6 months into the relationship, I started to see the crack in the facade. He became moody, and he just became sullen. And it's just like he would just sit there. We'd be at the apartment and watching TV or just talking, and he'd just sit there and he just get silent, like he was upset about something, and he just wouldn't talk. It was just a sullen mood. It was an obvious change in his behavior and his attitude. And there were other little things, like at one time someone broke into the apartment. And I had some clothes there, and that individual pulled the items out of the drawer, laid them on the bed. I had some items in the bathroom that were in the drawer. That person pulled them all out of the drawer and laid them on the counter. I had some vodka in the counter, in the cabinet in the kitchen. They took the vodka. And those were the little things. Those were the red flags that I ignored. And I always felt like there was something that just wasn't right. But I ignored that also because by all appearances, he seemed perfect. And now that I've had some time to think about things, think about the relationship, I saw that there was manipulation. And it was just little simple things that he'd say or do. And I would say to him, I was like, that's being manipulative. Are you trying to be controlling? And not really thinking anything of it. But now that I look back on it, he was very manipulative and he was very controlling. He was just real subtle with it. The last time that I talked to him was when I took the truck. That's the last conversation that I had with him that I can talk about. If you're with someone and they tell you that they love you less than a month in the relationship, that's a red flag. If they seem too perfect, that's a red flag. If they seem to be in a rush to move the relationship forward, that's a red flag. If they play the victim card, that's a red flag. If they ask you to do things that you wouldn't ordinarily do, that's a red flag. So pay attention to those things. Pay attention to your gut.
Charlie Simpson. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and also the owner for the Arkansas Relationship Counseling Center, where we see over 300 couples a year.
So, how long have you been in this field?
I've been working with couples since about 2000, for about 10 years now. I've been in the mental health field for about 14 at this moment.
And so, what type of range of individual do you typically get? Do you have people that just want to come for marriage advice, all the way from the extremes? What type of couples do you deal with?
I deal mainly with couples that are in crisis, basically just stories like we're about to share today. I work with a lot of those couples. They're coming in, there's a lot of hurt. They don't know what to do with that hurt, and I basically just navigate them from a place of being able to like each other again.
Okay. So, we're going to get right into the questions. So, how do you help couples deal with narcissistic individuals that they choose to be in a relationship with?
Now, this is a tough one. Oftentimes when couples come in, they are basically looking at the other individual and just saying, hey, if you fix what you need to fix, then we'll be fine and we'll be great. Our approach when working with those types of couples is really to help the couple to see the entire picture, to understand the entire picture of what's happening within their relationship, to be able to see that differently. And once they get to a place where they're able to see those components or dynamics differently, they learn to navigate through those differences. They learn to work through those differences. Now, dealing with the narcissistic, oftentimes when you have personalities such as that, it can be a little bit more challenging. Those individuals are really not as open to, wanting to move into a direction of compromising. Oftentimes, we may not even see narcissistic type personalities within our office because they simply will say, I'm not the problem. You just need to fix you and we'll be absolutely fine. But if for some reason they're able to come into the office with that openness to even take that first step of saying, I'm just here to see what happens, we can take them to a place of being able to just understand who they are, and so that they can present and do what they need to do to be able to get the relationship to a place where they'll be okay. So there's a lot of different directions. If they are willing to come in, there are opportunities for that person to see the relationship differently and make change. My answer to that is to help them understand the why. Why do I have 4 to 5 women on the side? Why is there a lot of deception? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Because oftentimes when people come into the office, they don't understand the why. Only thing that they know is that they have a girl here, they have a girl there, I'm deceiving this person, manipulating. And the only thing that they know is that, hey, this is what I do. But once they're able to really understand why, what you start to experience, that individual notice is that there's something deeper. I'm doing what I know. I'm doing what I saw other people do. I'm doing what was done to me. Once they're able to really understand those deeper components of why I'm doing what I'm doing, they then begin to grasp hold of what I can do to do things differently. Now, once again, If they come into the office and they're saying there's something, why I'm doing these things, I want to stop, usually that person is open to change. Those are the individuals that will say, I don't want to do this anymore. Unfortunately, everybody is not in that place. There are certain people that just say, I'm not ready to change who I am. I haven't hit rock bottom yet. I don't think what I'm doing is wrong. And those individuals we would very rarely see in a therapeutic office. Unfortunately, those behaviors typically will continue because the only thing that that individual knows is
And we'll pick up with that individual.
mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go.
Unfortunately, the only thing that individual knows at that moment is what I'm doing is taking care of my needs right now.
How often do you provide therapy services for individuals who repeatedly ignore red flags in relationships and believe they can fix the other individual?
Oh man, if I can fix the other person, if I can heal them, if I can take away their hurt, then in return they'll be able to love me. If I can just make sure that, hey, I show you that I don't want to hurt you, that you can trust me, then you will care about me and you'll show up for me the way that I need emotionally. And if I'm not able to solve those things for you, where does that leave me? It leaves me in a place feeling unloved. It leaves me in a place feeling uncared for, feeling like you don't care. And that's why I do what I do, to go over and beyond. Even if it requires sacrificing me, I do what I know to make sure that I show you what it is that I need. And I can't stop that, because if I stop trying, that means I sit in a place that I don't like. I have to sit in a dark place and wonder, how do I get out of here? Even though I see these red flags coming, for those individuals, I would have to say there comes a time where you say, I'm tired. When you start getting to that tired place, you begin to say, I can no longer sacrifice myself for other people. When you get to that tired place, you go to places that you start doing things that you never dreamed of. You start to say, hey, I can't save you. Maybe I need to find love a different way. Maybe I need to reach within to care for myself. And you start to go through this major internal shift. And the thing that I would recommend is just wait until you're tired. Because if you continuously fighting, that's a sign that you still have hope that I can change this person and they'll in return love me. Once you start to hit that tired place, that's when you begin to move into a place to say, I can't sacrifice myself anymore. And so if you're ignoring the red flags, that's just where you are at this particular moment. Sooner or later, those red flags are going to put you in a place where you'll say, I have to start loving me. I have to start focusing and making sure I'm okay. And that's my best recommendation when it comes to ignoring red flags. Sooner or later, your eyes are open, you'll become tired, and you will want to do things differently.
Gotcha. All right, so how often do you see individuals that claim they aren't the problem in a relationship when things go wrong? And you mentioned this a little bit at the beginning.
I'm never the problem, right? I'm doing what I know to do. I'm doing what life taught me to do, to handle issues, to handle conflict. And from my own lens, this is what I know should work. And so if I'm coming in and if I'm doing these things, then I'm doing what I know to do. And then all of a sudden another person comes in and they begin to do things differently. I don't understand that language. I don't see things from that lens. And what that does for me is it puts me in a place of confusion. It puts me in a place of feeling like you're not there for me because you're not experiencing, you're not exemplifying the behaviors, the traits that I need you to in this moment. And I see those individuals all the time. As a matter of fact, that's what causes the dysfunctional cycles that happen within relationships. They just start to know that something doesn't feel right. My partner isn't doing what they should be doing. And of course, miscommunication happen, conflicts happen, hurtful moments begin to happen. And next thing you know, you're in a place where you don't know how to fix it. Once the individual gets to that place where they're tired, they don't know how to fix it, usually that's the point where they either throw in the towel or they move into a place and say, maybe we need somebody to come and help. You see a lot of hurt. You see a lot of hurt. And what's even more hurtful is when an individual is sacrificing themselves to get this other person to love them and they are out, coping, feeling their needs, through other experiences, other women, and it leaves that person really questioning, why didn't they love me in return? I did what I was supposed to do. I loved them. I sacrificed myself. Why didn't they love me in return? And that individual has to go through a grieving process. They have to go through a process of trying to make sense of why they didn't love me. And you go through the anger. You go through a lot of denial. You go through a lot of bargaining. Maybe if I would have loved them harder, maybe they would have loved me back. And then you start going through some depression. You start questioning, golly, I couldn't fix this. Now I find myself oversleeping, not sleeping, overeating, not eating, isolating myself, a lot of tears. And then I get to a place of acceptance. However that looks for an individual, I start to tell myself, I'll be okay. And once you get to that place of feeling okay, you can then move forward. But what triggers that grieving process just starts with hurt, and it starts with not understanding why I could not fix it.
Got a couple more questions here. What is some information that is given to individuals when they are in denial of their split personalities, and how therapists help them become more aware of these mental issues?
Unfortunately, we very rarely see in our practice individuals that are in denial, per se, the true denial. True denial is, I'm just going to see other women and that's just me. I'm just going to do me. If I get caught, I get caught. I leave that person alone, add someone else to replace them. What we typically see is an individual that's saying there's something that I'm doing that I don't like, even though I like doing it. And what I'm doing is hurting someone else. And oftentimes they're just in a confused place of trying to say, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? And it might look as if it's denial on the outside because maybe they won't stop the behavior. But think about it this way. If I've been neglected all my life and I've learned through that neglect that I can have one person come in my life and my experiences being that one person is going to leave again. Somewhere along that journey in life, I say to myself, well, maybe I should have two. Because if one leaves, I have another one that can bag up. But then I start to realize that two, both of them left. Well, maybe I need three. And next thing you know, you're juggling 8 people. But the number one thing that you notice is that I won't have to be alone. If one leave, I got 7 more that can keep me out of that alone place. And when that individual come into the office, they don't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. The only thing that they know is that why am I seeing 7, 8 women at one time, and I'm hurting these individuals, and I know I need to stop, but for some reason I can't. And when they go through a process of going to a place that they've buried, going to a place of hurt that they never wanted to experience again, and they go to that neglect, they look around in that place and start to say to themselves, now I understand this feeling. Now I understand what I've been running away from. Maybe I don't need as many women. Let me rephrase that. Maybe I don't need all of these women to fill this void. Maybe I'll be okay with just one. Going through that process, I see people experience that day in and day out. I work with a lot of affairs, and it is a very scary process for a person that is committing an affair to let go of that lover. Because if I let that lover go, what does that mean for me? I got to go to this alone place, and people on the outside may look and say, well, you have your spouse, go to them. Well, if it was that easy, that's what I would do. But there's something that's happening for that individual that tells them even going to my spouse is difficult to feel this void that I'm feeling. And it's important that for those individuals to be able to just not look and see that as denial. It's more of, it's just a confusion on what I'm doing. I don't know how to make sense of what I'm doing. And the only thing that I know is that what I'm doing is keeping me out of dark places.
What relationship advice would you give to individuals that tend to lower their standards and self-esteem just to satisfy their mate?
I have an ebook on this called Sacrifices. And that's what the classic term for sacrifices. We sacrifice our self-esteem, we sacrifice our standards, we lower those things, we put those valuable items to the side, and we try to be present for other people. And we do everything that we can, despite how we feel, to make sure that other people are okay. Because once again, if I can fix it with you, then you'll be able to love me or care for me in return. The advice that I would give is, once again, once you become tired, once you get to that place of saying what I'm doing is no longer working, to begin to start an internal process of just making sense of why I've been sacrificing. Once you begin that journey of turning inwardly and just understanding why I'm doing what I'm doing and sacrificing like I am, you'll be able to put so many words, so many phrases, so much meaning behind what the behavior is. And when you have that much control over that meaning, you're able to develop the skills to manage those emotions moving forward. And it all starts with just turning inward and really doing a lot of self-exploring.
Last two questions. What advice would you give parents that have kids and date multiple individuals at one time, bringing the individuals in the presence of the child on a weekly basis?
This question is very interesting. It's basically saying, if I see my child exhibiting a behavior that I don't like, what do I do as a parent? And if you're dealing with a young adult that is exhibiting this behavior, they're either going to be in one or two places. They're going to be at a place where they're saying my behavior is not bad, or I don't like my behavior and I want it to stop. If they're in a place where they're saying that my behavior is inappropriate, chances are they'll start taking the steps to figure out what's happening. If you're the mother of that parent, that child, you support them. You just continue to say, hey, I'm here. I love you despite what's happening. And I wish you the best of luck. And if you need anything, I'll be right here. If that child is in a place where they're in denial and they're saying what I'm doing, there's nothing wrong with it, you got to do the same thing. You have to still love them. You still have to support, not the behavior, but you can still support the person in that moment. And that is, son, daughter, despite whatever behavior is being demonstrated, I love you as a person, and I just hope that the behavior doesn't put you in a place that you will later regret.
Nice. And then for the last question, lastly, how important is it to make sure that while you're in a new relationship, you meet the needs of your own child to the fullest before taking on your new partner's kids and trying to establish the bonus dad role?
That's really important. You first learn how to do it with your own child, love your own child, and through that experience, I learned the skills on how to love my partner's kids. But there's even a step before that, and that is, do I even love me, or am I in a place where sacrificing myself and just trying to, just still being in that sacrificing role and trying to learn or earn love from other people? Because if that's what I know to do to get love, guess what I teach my child? Guess what I teach my partner's kids and anybody else? I teach it from that lens. But first, being able to love self, even if I'm not receiving love from others, can I find a way to make sure that I'm okay? And when you start to have that internal peace, you begin to have conversations with your own child, and they'll start to pick up on that peace as well. And then you will be able to even send that same message of love to your partner's kids. And so it is highly important to be able to have that own personal experience. And once you're able to experience that, you'll be able to show it to your kids and partners' kids as well. The last thing that I would say is for the individuals that have to go through the hurt and going through the importance of that grieving process. When a person go through a traumatic experience such as, being cheated on in an affair, there's a lot of trauma that happens for that individual. And oftentimes what we try to do is just, especially in African American culture, is we just be strong, we push it to the side, and we just fight through it and bury it and just continue life, where our body is saying there's something that I'm grieving here. There's a lot of hurt that I have here. There's a lot of things that I don't know how to make sense of, and I don't know what to do with it. And what we have to learn to do is honor our body and being able to allow it to go through a process of facing something that no one likes to face, and that's trauma, and be able to put words to that trauma, be able to put healing to that trauma so that they can go through a grieving process and get to a place of seeing that hurt, that affair, that cheating situation differently. Because if we don't, we end up taking that hurt on to our next relationship, whether consciously or unconsciously. And my biggest recommendation is to make sure that we're not trying to escape or run away from that hurt, but we do allow our bodies to grieve and heal the way that it needs to heal.